Welcome to another DragonLance Saga review episode. It is Baraka Fierce Wealth the Fifth. My name is Adam, and today I'm going to give you my review of Vinas Solamnus by J. Robert King. Now, I would like to take a moment and thank the DL Saga members and invite you to consider becoming a member by visiting the link in the description below. You could even pick up DragonLance gaming materials using my affiliate links. All right, so this is my perspective. If yours differs, that's okay. We can share differing ideas in this country, believe it or not. And not hate each other for having done it. All right, so leave your thoughts in the chat if you want to join in the chat and you're joining live. If you're watching this after the fact, leave them in the comments below. We'll always have a bit of a back and forth. So let's have some fun. Chris, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in. Super pumped about this review. Solid Cumby, how you doing, man? Good to see you. All right. This was effing amazing. I'm not joking when I say this is in my top 10 Dragonlance novels of all time. And that includes the 3 Chronicles and the 3 Legends. This is an amazing novel that I cannot believe I have never read before now. If I know people, they sort of champion Legend of Huma as like this great novel. And there's so many people that love it desperately. This blows Legend of Huma out of the water. Hands down, infinitely better in every way. Better writing, better storytelling, better epic nature, massive scope. It is incredible, and it feels entirely Dragonlance before there was ever even this idea of the Cataclysm or the Knights of Solamnia or any of that. This is way before any of that ever happened, and it still feels deeply entrenched in Dragonlance, which is wild because when you think of Dragonlance, you think of the Dragon Wars, or you think of Istar and the Cataclysm and, you know, the sort of aftermath of that. But having this being set so far before all of that and really forcing you to live in Ergoth and what it's like to be in this empire after the Sword Sheath Scroll was signed, you really get this vibe of this monstrous, bloated empire that doesn't even care regionally to take care of the people. They're literally just subjugated regionally around the entire country. It's stunningly good. I have to get all of that out of the way because sweet hell, I didn't know what I was getting into, and I've had so many bad Dragonlance novel experiences recently that this really woke me up. Like, you can actually have a good story and have it be interesting and tie into the history and still bring you joy. Like, this stuff still exists. It's great. If you've never read this, seriously, do yourself a favor. Hey, Corey, hey, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in. Okay, here we go. So Vinas Solamnus, his father is a person of prominence, and he sort of gets him into this military position where he actually goes through and has this sort of stumbling point where he's actually thrown out of the military, and his dad puts him into the priesthood of Paladine as a cleric, and he doesn't want to. He doesn't like any of this. He doesn't even really know if he believes in the gods at all. But he goes through with it. The Emperor, meanwhile, is trying his best to marry some, like, vixen, as it were, to sort of keep him happy and carry on the twisted, corrupt Ergothian imperial line, really. And he has this sort of soothsayer that says he can find this one woman and she will bring Ergoth into power, and she will be this incredibly powerful person, and the emperor actually ends up marrying her and ends up really not liking her at all because she can't bear children and she's not very attractive. But Vinas Solamnus does find her attractive, and she's really into Vinas Solamnus. And so ultimately Vinas is put into a position of being a personal guard for the emperor, and being his personal guard, he has more face time with the empress. And they sort of have this connection that he clearly cannot act on because it's the Empress and he would be killed if he ever did. But he doesn't really want to. But we have to remember that Vinas Solamnus is not a good person. He's not a bad person. He's just another person, right? He's not a personification of the Knights of Solamnia yet because they don't exist. All he is a product of his environment. And his environment is a corrupted, despotic empire. So that's how he is sort of acting. The great part about storytelling when you're talking about evil, they don't think they're evil. In most cases, they actually think they're doing what's right. You can actually see that right now in the world, all over the world. No one thinks they're evil. They think they're on the side of justice or right. In this story, Empire of Ergoth is very much framed as evil through the ways that people are being treated by the imperial rule, but the people actually enacting laws and they don't necessarily see themselves as overtly evil, just taking advantage of a situation that they can take advantage of. And so you see people overtaxing the populace and then selling back, taking their goods and then selling back the goods in a sort of bloviated price, which then, makes them incredibly unhappy as a citizenry. And it's not really a citizenry because it's not like it's a republic or anything. It's just crazy. So Vinas sort of stands up against that. And every single chapter ends with Vinas talking, like writing a diary note to his dead father. And it gives you insight into Vinas's inner workings. His gives you an opportunity to read a monologue, basically, about what Vinas actually thinks versus what he's doing. And the character arc of Vinas Solamnus is one where he believes in what he's doing for the Empire until he sees what it does to the people, and then ultimately reflects back on the goodness and the sense of honor that his father had. And that sort of forces this catalyst of change within him. And he starts to realize that perhaps being in this empire is actually making him something that he's not proud of and that he can't find a semblance of honor for. And he starts to define what it means to be a good soldier, a good man, and a good leader. He ultimately ends up meeting this ex-senator type character who runs this entire realm, I guess you would call it. Sorry, it's been a week since I've read this, and so it's not all entirely fresh in my head. And then ultimately, he's welcomed in as he's trying to subjugate this land and take over this entire area. He's welcomed in, and the senator is like, "Look, I want you to take this over. I know your father was an honorable man, and I think that you should, peacefully take this realm. But if you're going to take this realm over, let's not hurt the people. Let's not do what Ergoth is doing everywhere else all around Ansalon. Instead, how about you take care of the people and you let them have a semblance of freedom, and you take consideration into how they live their lives and what your actions do to affect them in the name of the Empire." And ultimately, he's like, "Look, I've got to bring your head back to the Emperor, period. And your men who followed you are all tyrants. They sort of went against the Empire, so we have to kill them all." And he's like, "Look, if you can have my head, but leave them alone, and I will give up the kingdom right now, the realm right now." And so his own person cuts his head off, and then they send the head back to Ergoth, and Vinas sort of just takes over and rules this small little area, pretending like he's executing all these people as signs of tyrants against the Empire, but in reality he's letting them go, and he's building trust. And every siege that happens from this point on is a siege of care and consideration rather than of death and destruction, because Vinas realizes that the Empire crushes people, and the real way to find powerful kingdom and happiness is through helping the people of your kingdom. And so he goes, builds this army, and it just completely decides to turn his life around. And there's this moment midway through the book when this happens, where he's talking about honor and justice, and it just fills you with joy, and it makes you think, like, I wish this was our world. I wish we had leadership like this, because you don't have to crush others in order to lift yourself up. You don't. You can actually just be a good human being, and you will lift yourself up without stepping on other people to get there. But that's not the world that we live in, but that is the world that Vinas Solamnus is trying to carve out of Ergoth. And I really connected with that idea. I mean, I've always liked the Knights of Solamnia anyway. It all comes down from my love of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table and that sort of idea. And that's really where they come from. And you really kind of get that sense here, especially with Vinas Solamnus as an Arthurian king figure of taking over this realm and really putting an end to the torment that Ergoth is enacting. So he starts to build up his army, and he starts to take back keep after keep, region after region that Ergoth had claimed. And when he takes over an area, he like sets up the siege so no one can get out, but he sends in food every single day. And the whole idea is that he wins people over, not through war, but through helping them and showing them that he cares and welcoming them into his kingdom, this new realm that he's sort of carving out. And I really, really loved that aspect. It would never work in real life, but I really love the suggestion of it. I say it wouldn't work in real life because I just can't imagine it working. I would like the idea of it working that way. But I couldn't ever imagine seeing it in real life. You know, we live in such a messed up world. So ultimately, it gets to a point where the Empire of Ergoth doesn't have soldiers to send up against him anymore. And the Empress, who in the absence of Vinas Solamnus, as he was sent off by the Emperor on a campaign to take back all the lands from the rebels, she, in his absence, has just been craving him and becomes wildly obsessed with him wanting her. And she connects with this old elven lich, which is a really cool story beat. And it just reminds me, the images in my head of the skeletal creature in the Disney show Black Cauldron, which was from the Prydain Chronicles, but it was totally taken out of context and made into this weird, sort of one-off film. But it was just this idea of this lich, and he can create this army of the undead on behalf of this evil empress who wants nothing more than just to have Vinas Solamnus love her and worship her like she believes she should be. And so they create these, every fallen soldier is now raised back up as this undead army. And you have this massive undead army war over and over and over again in this book. And it's freaking awesome. So you've got these griffins coming down and fighting on behalf. So these sort of epic air battles are still happening, which is very Dragonlance. But then this massive groundswell, massive wars happening on the ground with the undead versus the living, or the Empire of Ergoth living versus the Vinas Solamnus. And I can just see this made into like a trilogy of films, just this one book alone made into a trilogy of films that is so epic and so large, and is not just a derivative copy of Lord of the Rings, but feels very authentic and just incredible. I wish they would make this into a trilogy. It would be so great. I don't think this would work out as well as a series, but 3 films set at like 3 distinct points in the story, I think would just be great. Start with Vinas Solamnus as the evil imperial soldier. Second one is about him turning and realizing who and what he should be. And the third one is about taking back Ergoth for the people. And you get this really great character arc. You get to see an empire rise and fall, massive wars, and winning people over through compassion rather than genocide, like we're seeing in our world. So it would be stunning. I mean, just stunning. So anyway, I love the evil elven lich aspect of it, and that there's this, sort of archaic sorcery used in order to try to keep this empire afloat, which is just crumbling under its own corrupted weight because it can't stand on its own. And ultimately, they get up to the gates of Ergoth, as it were. Daltagoth, I believe, was the capital at the time, and they ended up. Vinas gives himself up so that the rest of the army can, sort of get away and be free. And he has this like sort of Braveheart moment where he's tortured for, I think it was like 3 months or something. They keep bringing him back to life if he ever expires, and then the clerics do, and then ultimately the citizenry, they rise up and fight off and free Vinas Solamnus. And it's this tidal groundswell from the actual citizenry. And there's so many great moments in this because it showcases what a siege actually does, right? What it does to the people, not just the military force behind on the other side. And so there's a moment where they were sieging, they're sort of surrounding Daltagoth, and the citizenry reached out to Vinas Solamnus and said, look, please stop this siege. They are hurting us, and all you're doing is hurting us, the people. You have to stop the siege because we are the ones dying. And when we die, we get raised up into more undead soldiers for this emperor. Like, we need you to stop this. And you have this real moral quandary. Do you stop the siege that would then allow the empire to persist? But meanwhile, if you don't, then the empire, then the people who you're trying to liberate are actually being actively hurt in the process. So, like, there's no good side to be won. There's no good choice to be made. You either suffer or someone else is going to suffer, in the short or long term. And I love these difficult decisions because you have to think this sort of epic scale. You're not doing what you're doing in the moment. You're doing it for future generations. You're not protecting the people in the moment. And that's why we sort of justify war, right? And especially, the Revolutionary War with between America and England. The idea wasn't to sacrifice in the moment for the moment. It was for the long term, to carve out a new republic in the hopes of being a more perfect union. And I love that idea that the sacrifices in the moment are not for you. And you get that sense when you read this book that everything that he's doing, and we know it on a meta scale because everything he's doing is going to create this order of knights that is going to protect and defend the people of Krynn for the rest of the lifetime of Krynn. And for the most part, they're going to do a pretty good job. There'll be some stumbling blocks that they'll hit, but in general, they do a pretty good job protecting, their people and innocence and the world, as it were, against the rise of Takesis and stuff. So it just ended up being this really grand, relatable, somewhat familiar, but wholly entertaining, epic story about the fall of the Ergothian Empire. Ultimately, Vinas Solamnus kills the Empress, and the Emperor basically begs. He's like, look, you can keep all the land that you want and everything that you've taken. Just leave, please. Like, let me come back and just leave my nation, and I'll just run my own little nation here, and you can have all the nation that you carved out over there, and we'll be peaceful now. Is that okay? And that's how they sort of sued for peace. And Vinas Solamnus created the nation of Solamnia. Actually, the people named it after him. And the very end of this is him looking up into the sky and seeing the constellations of Paladine, Kiri-Jeleth, and Habakkuk, and talking about how each of these deities represents different ideas and traits that he then is going to create an order of knights that are personifications of those traits. And that's sort of the cap on this. So you get the story arc of a character who is relatively bad and evil and turns into a man of honor and justice, uh, like he's always kind of wanted to be inside, but the world he lived in wasn't really that type of a world to exist until it did. We are all a collection of our experiences from our families and the regions of the world that we happen to be living in, and the countries and those laws. Uh, but we are not defined entirely by any of those. We can carve out a version of ourselves that we are happy with and that we can find a semblance of peace in order to embody, right? We get to choose who we are. We are not solely a product of where we come from. That's what this story really spelled out. And that's something that I think all of us have to continually reinforce within ourselves, that we may find ourselves in a moment where we're not particularly proud of what we are saying or what we're doing or who we've become. But you can always change. You can always improve yourself for the better. You don't have to just be where you are. You can grow, correct traits that you find within yourself that you are not happy with, you know? And I love that aspect, that we see that character arc in Vinas and we can see that within us. And that's one of the reasons I just absolutely love this novel. I think the author did such a great job. And while I was putting my show notes together, I was seeing a bunch of bad reviews. Like, people were saying that this was not good and that it wasn't about the founding of the Knights and it didn't describe the three orders of Knights. But that's not what it's called. Vinas Solamnus. It's about him and his life. And yes, he created the Knights, but that's only after he became who he was. And this book is about how he became who he was, not necessarily about the three orders, which are all personifications of traits that he unlocked within himself, that he had to sort of go through fire, as it were, in order to discover within himself. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And if you are someone who finds inspiration and joy in our own historical mythology, in that sort of King Arthur tale, in the hero's journey, you will 100% love this novel. But if you're going into this just expecting a description of the Oath and the Measure or the Three Orders of Knights, you're not going to get that. This is about the fall of Ergoth and the rise of Solamnia and Vinas Solamnus specifically, and how he became the hero that he is seen through all of history as being. It's great. All right, so let me see you guys' notes here. This is a hidden gem for sure. Totally unexpected. You gain more respect and insight for the Solamnic Knights than all 4 Knight books on the previous series. 100%, dude. The other, yeah, 100%. Even though this didn't talk about the orders except for the sort of very end of the book, you get a semblance of, you get a sense of what it means to be a knight, because you have to, you have to grow, you have to improve on yourself. You can't just be okay with who and what you are. Hey, Marco, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in live. It's a shame the author only wrote one other Dragonlance story. Oh, really? I got to read that. I hope it's good. Javier, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in. King's a good writer. Would have been cool to have him write more DL novels. Yeah, I wish so too. I mean, after having read this, I would love to see a part 2 of this, just called The Knights of Solamnia, or just The Empire of Solamnia, or something like that. Because I want to know the early days when what trials could Vinas Solamnus have gone through in the formation of these knights? How did his knights all work together, and what trials did they face, and who did they have to fight in order to maintain their hold on this new nation of theirs? The idea of what it means to create and hold together a nation is entirely germane to what we're going through right now in our world, no matter where you are around the world. It is a precarious thing, creating a republic and then sacrificing for it, and doing your best to keep it together. That's something that's built on the back of struggle. And there's no one right way of doing things because we're all human beings and we all see the world in slightly different ways. And so we have to work together in order to hold a union together, whether it's an empire or whether it's a republic. You have to be able to work with the citizenry and with other leaders that you at times completely disagree with and still be respectful and understand that in the moment you might have to make short-term gives and takes, but on the other end of that is an opportunity to change policy and to evolve as an organization or a nation or an empire. I love those ideas. We as an American people are continuously trying to hold it together in the face of what seems like it should be ripped apart. But we're still here and we're still working on it, even in the darkest of days. And I want to see what that's like for Solamnia. I think it would be a very interesting story, and I think this author would do a great job doing it. All right, so what else here? Looking for... love the channel, in-depth discussion, DragonLance lore. Yeah, man, I appreciate you tuning in. You love how the gods were treated in the book, amorphous and not directly involved. I like that too, Chris. DragonLance really tends to put the gods in the forefront. This had them way on the back burner, and they were not really important to the story at all. They were aspirational figures, that sort of idea of deities representing things, but they weren't coming down as Fizban and telling him what to do. This was a very human story about passion, about pain, about sorrow, about desire, about wanting to be a better person than you see yourself in the mirror as. I mean, it's so relatable. It's so good. Liam O'Brien does Audible, FYI, Critical Role. Oh, hey, Pwog, how you doing, man? I listened to the audiobook of this. I thought he did a great job. Vinas' conversation with his deceased father had you in tears. He held on to every bit of advice his dad gave him and appreciated him more after he was gone. Yeah, and that's another thing. We live in this sort of manufactured fantasy world where fathers always give good advice, right? The truth is not every father's a good father. Not every parent is a good parent. In the best of cases, you'll get some nuggets of wisdom. But I do like that fiction that every father has this wisdom that he will then pass on, and that in time their children will understand and take it to heart. And I was with you. I was very, very moved by the conversations that he was having with his father, in his father's memory and stuff. I just thought it was beautiful. Aragoth is so corrupted and evil, it's hard to see how their clerics were given power at all. Well, and that's the thing. You don't realize you're evil, right? At all. I can't really get too heavy in politics nowadays because it changes the whole dynamic of the show if I do that. But you can see that in our world right now. People do horrible things and just monstrous things to other human beings because they think that they're right. And you can be on any side of any issue and see that in the other side. So, I know some of the people in the military and how they were acting knew they were being evil and knew they were doing bad things, but they kind of felt like it was how it was supposed to be done in some cases. And some people were just bad people. The emperor is just a bad person. But clearly Vinas, he was in the imperial command, and he wasn't a purely evil person. He was just doing things that he was told under the way that the empire is set up. And so in that way, it forces you to have a little bit of perspective, I think. What does it mean to be a member of an evil empire? Are all of your actions justified and fair? I mean, that's one of the things I loved about my service for my country, was that you had to follow orders given to you as long as they were lawful orders. You only have to follow lawful orders. You're not a mindless drone. You're supposed to be doing something for a reason, and you cannot break the law in the pursuit of that. And I love that, about our service. I just wish people listened to it a little bit more. All right, the battle scene against the undead in Ergoth was awesome. Griffins dropping boulders, Vinas beheading dark clerics. Yeah, man, these battle sequences were written beautifully. Very epic in scope, but visceral, like you felt it on the ground level. And that's what I loved about the author, because he was really able to give you an overview of the battle, but then hyper focus down onto a moment without feeling cheated or without feeling like you're missing out on things. I thought he did such a good job. You love how Vinas defined the 3 orders of the crown. Of the knights they were about to form. Yeah, I thought that was great as well. Marco, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in. Definitely wasn't expecting an elven lich or an undead army. You should definitely be here for it because it's dope. It's so good. The loyalty of Vinas' commanders. They stayed with him when he fought for Ergoth, and almost all stayed with him when he fought against. And I liked the ones that didn't want to go with him, because they couldn't turn their back on their country, on their nation. That sense of patriotism for who and what you believe in and stand for is, ultimately it's propaganda when you strip it all away. But it becomes a part of you, I couldn't imagine not claiming being a proud American, even when I'm not proud of America. I love this country, and I wouldn't want to go against it. And that's why I think it's worth fighting for when you disagree with what it's doing. It's worth standing up for and making it a more perfect union, because it will never be perfect. And so I get why soldiers would not want to turn against Ergoth, because that is a part of who and what they are. As much as I respected and loved that Vinas was like, okay, well, you need to leave, but I'm not going to hurt you. I understand why you're doing what you're doing. And, for those of you who are joining me, welcome. For those of you who are not, there's the door. See your way out, instead of just like murdering them like Ergoth would probably do. All right, the story the other authors should have read before writing the other DragonLance novels. Yeah, Corey, that's 100% true. Unfortunately, this was written, in the sort of mid to late life cycle of DragonLance. But if we could just go back in time and have people read this before they wrote anything else, I think we would get much better novels. More than Huma, Vinas is the epitome of what a Solamnic knight should be: flawed, open-minded, for the people, honoring those that came before, willing to sacrifice for others. Hear, hear. Definitely, MJD, thanks for tuning in. How you doing? One of those hidden gems of the DL saga that's not necessarily one of the more prominent DL authors. Yeah, and that's the crazy part about it. If it wasn't for this channel, I would never have read this book. I would never have known about it. And I'm so incredibly happy that we can all get together and talk about Dragonlance and share these hidden gems together and really sort of geek out about it, because I read Dragonlance novels through my entire youth. It kind of helped define how I see the world in a weird way. The things that you wrap yourself in, you sort of see life filtered through those things, right? In this particular case, fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons, Dragonlance, and the themes connected with that of balance, of good and evil, and the idea that human beings are a mixture of all of those things, and that's important. I don't know. I think people would be a lot better if they read more fantasy. I'm just going to put that out there. Tarek, how you doing? Isn't the novel about Fist and Daedalus a sort of second part of this novel? It's in the trilogy of novels. So it's in the Lost Legends 3 series of books, but they're not directly connected. No, not at all. I'm actually halfway through Fist and Daedalus right now. Fist and Daedalus Reborn. It's different. All right. You loved how Vinas set up Solamnia at the end as a group of city-states that collectively and voluntarily are all part of and protect each other. Yeah. Could you talk about the fable of the 3 treasure chests honor? You really love that part. I don't remember every single bit of that, but there was this idea that he could never get honor. I'm trying to remember exactly. Because it was too difficult to find honor amongst like the other. Yeah, I'm just gonna butcher it. I don't remember it exactly. I liked the idea that he was like giving it on to his kids and passing this idea of honor in the sort of metaphor of these three chests. I don't remember what the other two were, if I'm being 100% honest. But this book had a whole lot metaphor built into it, and I really appreciated it the whole time. Electra, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in. Reading Kendermore right now. Oh, nice. Major weekend. Looking forward to your next gaming episode. Yeah, next week should be good. All right, so that is it. Let me look at my notes here and see if there's anything else that I wanted to hit on. The founder of Solamnic Knights did not all start out as like pure of heart people. They evolved into them. One of the most powerful parts of the books was a short journal entry written about how he had just put down a rebellion and killed the leader. And he said that you would have loved his father. He was the man that he was supposed to be. Let's see. Everyone likes to think that they're a good person, whether they really are or not. I think I covered everything here. Yeah. So instead of attempting blackmail, extortion, or maybe even a little magic, her move was to ally with a lich who provides her with access to a zombie army. Yeah. All right, Arburger, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in. Getting it at the end there. It's a good book for young manager. It makes you look at your corporate company differently. Interesting. I could see how you could definitely learn leadership notes from this novel for sure. All right, well, that is going to do it for this review. If you enjoy Dragonlance, if you enjoy knightly orders, if you enjoy fallen empires and sacrifices for a greater good, this is definitely a book for you. So that is it for my review of Vinas Solamnus by J. Robert King. What did you think of Vinas's story arc? Are you okay with the focus on him rather than the knighthood? And finally, what do you think of this author? Feel free to email me at info@dlsaga.com or leave a comment below. I would like to take a moment and remind you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, ring the bell to get notified about upcoming videos, and click the like button. This all goes to help other Dragonlance fans learn about this channel and its content. This channel is all about celebrating the wonderful world of the Dragonlance Saga. Thank you so much for joining in that celebration. So, until next time, my name is Adam Slanjavar.